We can all agree that the ocean is a vast and mysterious place, often thought to be home to creatures yet to be discovered. This is mainly because of the fragility of the human body, which depends on air, making it difficult for us to explore the deep sea, a world that has remained almost untouched for thousands of years. Due to these limitations, ancient people's knowledge about marine life mostly came from strange creatures that washed up on shore. Some even relied on religious texts that spoke of sea monsters whose mysteries endure to this day, one of the most famous being the Leviathan. While some scholars may consider it a mere myth, the existence of the Leviathan has been recorded for thousands of years, including in the Scandinavian map known as Carta Marina. These references suggest not a new species, but rather a legendary mega sea monster. In this video, we'll explore who the Leviathan really was, why it remains so mysterious, and whether there's any connection between the Leviathan and prehistoric sea creatures based on fossil discoveries. The Leviathan is one of the most mysterious mythological sea creatures in human history. Its name, well known for thousands of years, appears in religious texts and ancient folklore, though descriptions vary. For instance, in Christianity, the Leviathan is often portrayed as a symbol of evil or even as a demonic force threatening the universe. In Jewish scriptures, however, it is depicted as a gigantic sea creature covered in thick scales capable of breathing fire. The word Leviathan itself comes from the Hebrew livia, meaning twisting, and tan, meaning monster. But the question remains, did ancient humans really encounter such a creature, or was it simply a symbol of mankind's fear of the vast, unknown seas? Before the term Leviathan became widespread, the idea of a giant sea serpent was largely influenced by Ketos from Greek mythology, a sea monster with a serpent-like body, tail spines, and front fins. Stories about Ketos have existed in Greek texts since the 1st millennium BC and often appear in ancient Greek art and artifacts. However, the narrative of giant sea serpents didn't stop with Greek mythology. It spread across the globe, both in ancient times and in cultures that persist today. In Babylonian mythology, there's Tiamat, the mother of all monsters, depicted as a massive serpent or dragon-like creature. Norse mythology features Jormungandr, the enormous sea serpent that encircles the world and is fated to battle the gods during Ragnarok. Yet, among these legends, Leviathan remains one of the most popular, especially because it is mentioned directly in sacred texts. It's important to note that we're not attempting to challenge religious interpretations, but rather to explore who the Leviathan might have been, based on historical accounts. In 1933, there were reports from North America of giant sea serpent sightings resembling the Leviathan, particularly in the Pacific Northwest, where the creature was called Cadbrosaurus. 3 eyewitnesses claimed to have seen a 24-meter-long sea creature with a 6-meter thickness in Cadboro Bay. The creature's head was covered in long hair, and its body undulated like a massive wave. A year later, Ed Sanderstrom handed over the remains of an unidentified sea creature to Canadian scientists. He named it Jorda. The body had 4 cartilaginous fins like a dolphin, but only the backbone remained intact. At the time, newspapers speculated that this creature might have been an ancient marine reptile like an ichthyosaur that somehow survived millions of years. While Leviathan as a mythological entity remains unsolved, stories of such giant sea monsters might stem from real, albeit misunderstood, discoveries. In 1808, for example, Scandinavians found the carcass of a dragon-like creature known as the Stronsay Beast. For centuries, giant sea serpents like the Leviathan, often referred to as the Great Serpent, existed in the blurry space between myth and reality, with no definitive scientific proof. Even into the mid-19th century, renowned scientists such as Louis Agassiz and Charles Lyell believed that the Leviathan could be real and that physical evidence would someday be uncovered. This belief was understandable, given the vastness of the world's oceans, leaving open the possibility that large marine animals had escaped human discovery. However, many reports of giant sea monsters from the 18th and 19th centuries lacked physical evidence and often described dragon-like shapes. That is why the 1808 discovery of the Stronsay Beast was so significant. The creature washed ashore on one of Scotland's Orkney Islands, and John Peace, a local farmer, was among the first to find it. At first, he thought it was a whale, but upon closer inspection, he realized it had a small head similar to that of a seal, a very long mane, and a twisted, lizard-like tail. Along its back, from shoulders to tail, was a thin ridge or crest that looked like hair. Its large front fin was covered with coarse hair, and Peace estimated its total length to be about 16.8 meters, despite part of its tail being missing. The story of this mysterious creature spread throughout Stronsay, with locals calling it a sea dragon. Unlike many other cryptic creature discoveries, parts of its body were preserved and sent to leading anatomists of the time for further study. Among them were John Barclay of Edinburgh and Everard Home of London. They presented their findings to the Wernerian Natural History Society on January 14, 1809, each accompanied by their own sketches based on eyewitnesses and preserved remains. Barclay concluded that the creature's body structure did not match any known marine species. Its long neck, sizable body, and limb-like fins suggested that it could be a new, unidentified species, perhaps even physical proof of the fabled Scandinavian sea serpent. Home, on the other hand, rejected this idea. He argued that the creature was merely a decaying basking shark. During decomposition, basking sharks can lose parts of their gills and upper jaw, creating the illusion of a long neck and mane. Home even provided comparative sketches of a normal basking shark versus one in an advanced state of decay, labeling misleading features. Despite Home's structured and scientific arguments, many at the time favored Barclay's analysis, captivated by the idea of a mysterious sea creature. The sheer size, bizarre shape, and remote discovery site made the Stronsay Beast seem like more than just the corpse of a large fish, perhaps even a real-life manifestation of ancient legends like the Leviathan. With public support behind him, Barclay, alongside his colleague Patrick Neal, officially classified the Stronsay Beast as a new species, naming it Hadrosaurus pontoppidan, in honor of Eric Pontoppidan, a Norwegian bishop and naturalist who wrote about sea serpents in his 1755 work The Natural History of Norway. Home continued to refute this interpretation, maintaining that the creature was a decomposed basking shark commonly found in Scottish waters. He also suggested that eyewitness accounts may have been influenced by popular literature of the time, particularly religious accounts promoting belief in sea serpents. Home reinforced his argument by pointing out that the creature had only 2 true fins, which were actually male reproductive organs, while the supposed other limbs were products of imagination. Over time, most naturalists sided with Home's conclusion, largely due to his scientific reasoning, even though his dismissive attitude offended some Scottish locals, contributing to the persistence of Loch Ness monster folklore today. In 1933, Professor James Frederick, curator at the Royal Scottish Museum, re-examined the preserved vertebrae and agreed with Home. The Stronsay Beast was most likely a severely decomposed basking shark, its altered form simply misleading observers. This kind of misidentification isn't unique. For example, in 1977, a Japanese fishing vessel caught a strange carcass near New Zealand, nicknamed the Zuiomaru carcass. Upon investigation, it was also identified as a decayed basking shark, similar to Home's earlier conclusions. Interestingly, the name Leviathan would later inspire the scientific naming of an actual prehistoric apex predator, Livyatan melvillei, a massive predatory whale whose fossils were found in Peru in 2008. In conclusion, the stories of the Leviathan told by ancient peoples were most likely products of imagination, shaped by limited knowledge and misidentifications of real but decomposed sea creatures.